So welcome to OpenGov TV. Hey, Dr. Joy and Eklavya, welcome to the show. My viewers, I would like to introduce two of our speakers. Okay, Dr. Mary Joy Abueg, who is the Vice President, National ICT Confederation of the Philippines, also known as NICP. Eklavya Bhave, Head of Asia for Coursera. Welcome, you two.
Thank you, Mohit. Thank you, OpenGov Asia.
Thank you, Mohit. And hi,
Absolutely.
Dr. Joy.
So today we're talking about emerging the Philippines public sector, building competency in emerging technologies for enhanced service delivery. Now, it's a global challenge. Skills. Technology is moving at such a rapid rate that no country can cope with the speed of deployment. Now, think about this, even the Philippines. All right, Dr. Joy and Eklavya, you will relate to this. We're talking about, cloud computing, cybersecurity, IoT, semiconductors, and now the biggest elephant in the room, Gen AI, right? Then you club that, okay, and try to get people upskilled, sure, but then you also have to concentrate towards the softer side. How do they communicate? How do they work, not in silos, but collaboration? And that's a big thing, right? So we're going to concentrate on technologies that are coming up and the plans that you guys have for the Philippines government, because at the end of the day, citizen services is of paramount importance. And you know what? All citizens now want everything to be personalized. Okay, it's not right. So it's driving that whole initiative. So Dr. Joy, if I may start with you, ma'am. So given the importance of digital services in the Philippines, how is the government going around trying to ensure that all employees across all public sector are upskilled? Especially also in areas where there's a challenge of internet based on the amount of islands you guys have.
Let's accept the fact that the government as well as the industry prioritize what we call the practical skills or skills first learning. So the Philippine government introduces the K-12 education because now the industry and the government prioritizes practical skills over traditional academic credentials. So we are now focusing on what individuals can do rather what degrees they can hold. However, as you told us, there are challenges, of course. In the Philippine settings, the Philippines ranked as 59 out of 64 countries when it comes to digital skills acquisition. So indicating a lack of talent, lack of industry relevant training and education. That's the data of 2023 World Digital Competitiveness. So imagine 59 out of 64 countries. So the government, together with the other industry, so they had the first Philippine Digital Transformation Development Policy financing, wherein to focus more or to give budget to the government when it comes to digital transformation and upskilling. So yeah, because let's accept the fact as well that budget is one of the major constraints and challenges when it comes to this upskilling, reskilling. So aside from that, when it comes to rapid technological change, so it is very fast as of now. So all we have to do is need to learn more, upskill our employees, reskill our employees when it comes to cybersecurity, AI, cloud computing, and other digital trends. And of course, another thing, when we bridge all these gaps, the government can improve their business environment in their local level. And of course, and at the same time, they can produce more, a better digital government system.
Yeah, true that. And you're absolutely right. Budget is always going to be a challenge, right? So the intelligence over here is to ensure how much more can you get for the dollars that you are investing, okay, in upskilling the workforce. So Eklavya, coming to you, sir. Coursera has its hands full, but how is Coursera then helping bridge the literacy gaps, okay, in collaborating with government, particularly in areas where it is hard to get, internet connectivity all the time or even power all the time?
Absolutely, Mohit. That's a great question. And I would just add to what Dr. Joy said in terms of the rankings of the Philippines. Dr. Joy was mentioning about a report. We also ran a report of Global Skills Report. And in that, we looked at about 110 countries. Philippines was ranked 101.
Wow.
That shows, while it's not a great statistics, but it also is a great way for us to start somewhere because there's a great opportunity for us to progress. And when we look at digital divide, we look at digital divide in two ways. One is the infrastructure itself, because the people may not have access to internet, but also in terms of digital divide because they may not have access to the content so that they can develop skills. At Coursera, we look at partnering with the governments in multiple ways. One is making sure that the access to the education is available to learners irrespective of where they are.
Mm.
Just as an example, at the time of COVID, when people were working from home, colleges were shut, public sector offices and government offices were working with a very limited capacity. The learners were learning on mobile. So today we have a mobile platform and mobile app where you can just download the content whenever you have the signal. And whenever you're traveling or if you're at home where you don't have the signal, you can still continue to learn on Coursera offline. So that's the first. Second is outside of the connectivity, it's also the divide because of the access of quality content. If I'm sitting in a small town, I may not have access to the best university or best education, but because of Coursera platform today, the learners have access to content from Stanford, Yale, Illinois, and even top tech companies such as Google, IBM, Microsoft. So that's in a way our contribution in reducing the digital divide. Now, you also asked about how are we partnering with the governments. So I would give you a few examples across the APAC region on how we're working with the governments. First is I can think of Uzbekistan. And when you think of Uzbekistan, you would not associate that with IT. But that's what the Ministry of Digital in Uzbekistan is trying to do, is to make Uzbekistan an IT hub so that it becomes a big industry. We are working with them to help them create or train 1 million coders. So they have a program called 1 million Uzbek coders. So that's how they are training the Uzbekistan citizens and youth to create coding capability within the country. The other similar examples are, for example, in Indonesia, we're working with the Ministry of Labor and Manpower under the program called Prakarja, where they are helping the individuals to join the workforce by helping them acquire skills through industry micro-credentials. Because as Dr. Joy also said, the focus is less on just rote learning, but acquiring skills so that the individuals will be able to contribute to the economy. So industry micro-credentials are a great way of doing that. So these are some of the examples that I could think of when we partner with the local governments.
No, thank you for that. That's very, very helpful and insightful. And the reason I say that is, if you think about it, universities and colleges are good, but at the moment, what we need is very rapid fire upskilling, right? Very targeted, so they can come into the workforce faster, okay, and help drive and bridge that gap that we have. So when you're going down this journey, there got to be, I would say, challenges when you're upskilling, the efforts. How are you addressing them to make it more impactful and sustainable? Dr. Joy, let me start with you, ma'am.
Okay. So let me first discuss the challenges. No, one of the primary challenges in upskilling, yes, we all know the limitation of resources. There are areas that still have no good connectivity, and there are like what I've said before, there are budget constraints, no? And when it comes to purchasing of digital tools, software, as well as the hardware itself. So another thing is that training of emerging tech skill. This is a very high cost for the industry as well as for the government to send their personnel for an AI training, cybersecurity, and other emerging trends. These are expensive. It also corresponds certifications and licenses. So nowadays, company requires not just skills, but also certifications and licenses. It is a plus points as an employee if you have those. So there are a lot of, aside from having a bachelor's degree, having a certification of training, you also need another thing are these licenses and training certifications. So sometimes another challenge is we train these employees, we send them for training. We also have a budget for them for all the costs. However, we train these employees, and sometimes your best talent departs from new shores. So we cannot control of that. So how can we make it more impactful and sustainable? So first, you have to do the prioritization of your strategic skills development. So you need to prioritize that. And then you need also to establish your key performance indicator, which allows your organization as well as the government to measure their upskilling programs perfectly. Then focus on the areas that will yield to the highest return of investment. So let's say, for example, in your department or agency, what are the needs? So you need to assess what are the needs for your agency or your department. So those are the things that needs to be prioritized.
Yeah, fair play. And you know what? It's not only just the needs. I get that. Yes, you're right. There should be clear KPIs. Uh, it's also getting the individuals motivated enough, right? It's almost like sending them right back to school. So some see this as a chore and not realizing that that's what's going to help them bridge that digital divide, because it's all about digital now. There's no other way around that. So, Eklavya, from a Coursera perspective, what are the challenges you guys are seeing?
Yeah, Mohit. So generally, when it comes to upskilling programs, we see four challenges the organization struggles with. First is not knowing what skills to develop, right? Because if you read, you'll get to know about hundreds of skills, but what skills are relevant now and also what will be relevant after 3 years is what organizations struggle to do. So what we do is we look at our learner database of about 160 million plus learners, find out what are the different skills they are building for different roles. We also partner with external agencies and leading organizations such as Burning Glass, World Economic Forum to provide our thought leadership and also share insights to look at which are these specific skills which are relevant in that particular year. So that helps with the first challenge, which is knowing what skills. Second challenge that the organizations face is which skill for which role. For example, if we talk about data science, there are hundreds of sub-skills within data science and different roles within the data science family. To solve for that, what we've done is created 300 plus skill sets, which is 300 plus roles, and defined which skill at what proficiency level is required for a particular role. So for example, in a government organization, somebody wants to become a data analyst. We have defined what are the skills, what is the proficiency level. To acquire that skill and proficiency level, what is the learning pathway that the individual should go, that has already been defined. So that solves for the problem of acquiring skills for the right role. The third challenge that the government and generally any organization faces is the contextualization. So you may have the best of the content, which may be global in nature, but how do you contextualize for your own region, for your own nation, for your own department? So for example, a healthcare department may want to create leadership program for its leaders. Leadership principles will still remain the same throughout the world, but the healthcare policies framework for a particular country will be different from the other countries. So what we have done is now created Course Builder on Coursera platform, in which a government entity or even an enterprise which has access to Coursera can leverage the videos which are already there on Coursera. They can put their own content and create a private course. So that will give them the advantage of having the content from the top sources, but also giving contextualized information to its employees. The final piece it is what also Dr. Joy mentioned earlier is the budgeting and justification. And that comes when you can show the output and success of the programs from the previous year. Generally, we have seen the challenge here is that the organizations measure lagging metrics such as number of learning hours, how many learners, how many course completions. These are just the input data. But what we aim to do is to provide the government bodies and entities is to have leading metric such as what are the skills built, what is been the improvement in the skills, who are those individuals who have acquired those skills. So I think these are some of the things that help governments justify and also show not only the success of the previous programs, but also show the intent for the forthcoming year.
That's brilliant. That's important because if government can show, okay, that the program where they're investing is working, okay, that gives everybody the confidence that the needle is shifting, and that's what we want. So, in this whole conversation about how critical is skills first learning in preparing the public sector for the future, Dr. Joy, and what is the vision for integrating emerging tech skills like cybersecurity, AI, cloud computing into the public sector training program?
So in the Philippine settings, we have this Philippine Digital Workforce Competitiveness Act, wherein will enhance the skills and the competitiveness of the Philippines when it comes to Philippine workforce. So in digital technology and in innovation. So it is also to ensure that the Filipino workers have access and are provided with digital skills and competencies that are par with the global standards and encourage digital innovation and entrepreneurship.
Well, thank you for that. Eklavya, just take that one step further, if we may. Right. Coursera's tailoring is offering its emerging tech skills to meet specific needs of the public sector employees, right? How are you guys doing that?
Yeah, when we look at a new skill, we look at in two different ways, Mohit. One is the skill itself, and second, how do we use that technology as an enabler? And at the starting of this conversation, you mentioned about Gen AI,
Mm.
and there is no conversation that ends without discussing Gen AI these days. So we look at Gen AI as an example, both as a skill and as an enabler. So to help the public sector employees acquire Gen AI skills, what we've done is we've come out with Gen AI Academy, which again has content from top companies such as Google, IBM, Microsoft, etc., but also from top universities. This aims at helping leaders and individuals build Gen AI at different levels. So that's the first. Second is Gen AI as an enabler for a learner. Now, we have done three things, again, leveraging Gen AI to make sure that the learning journey is fast and also engaging for a learner. So the first thing that we have done is introduced an AI coach on a platform. So as an individual, if I'm learning on Coursera platform, I'm somebody from finance department, for example, I can ask that coach, I'm in finance, what are the specific Gen AI skills I should be building? You would get a response from the coach instantly that these are the specific skills. I can then ask, what should be my journey if from finance I want to get into data science role? It'll tell you what are the skills needed and also tell you what is the kind of content that you should be taking. So in a way, this coach is both as a learning coach, also as a maybe a career coach, because if you are in public sector or even if you're in private sector, you want to move to the next level. So that's first. Second, as an enabler, and specifically in the context, not so much for Philippines, but in the Asian context, language becomes a barrier in many countries when it comes to learning. And we didn't want that barrier to come in the way of a learner. So we have leveraged Gen AI to translate our content in 21 plus languages, including Thai, Indonesian Bahasa, Japanese, Korean, so that the learners are able to learn and don't have to are not inhibited or restrained by the languages they don't understand. So that's this second part. And the third part is course builder, which I talked about
Mm.
earlier, which is contextualizing for the department, for the agency, which is creating content for its employees.
Awesome. No, and I think the course builder that you guys have, again, empowered by Gen AI, is pretty powerful because it tailor makes what the individual needs or the organization needs, which is very cool. So let's look into the future. And this is my last question for the two of you. Let's look in the future, right? How can governments, education institutions, and industry, obviously leaders, work together collectively to efficiently bridge the skills gap? Okay, skill training programs ensure that these collaborations align seamlessly with the national digital transformation goals, because after all, every nation has their own set of goals. Okay, so how do we go down that journey, Dr. Joy?
Okay, I'll give you first the context of the overall score of the Philippines when it comes to East Asia 2024 Government AI Readiness Index. So that now it's 58.51. And when it comes to e-government development index, it's now 73. So before in 2022, we are 89, imagine. Now boils down to 73. So however, what are the government in response to those ratings? No? So the government also have the initiatives and policies, because we all know that we have a lot of, we call, geographically isolated and disadvantaged area. So the government as well as the industry or the private sector provide free Wi-Fi and trainings, can be online trainings and physical trainings. And also they have a lot of initiatives when it comes to digital jobs program, digital PH jobs program. And the government also have the national digital transformation strategy, wherein developed a comprehensive strategy that includes promoting digital literacy across all sectors. And at the same time, we also have the what we call the Cybercrime Prevention Act, wherein part of that is requirement the education sector to integrate cybersecurity courses. So and create a technical working group to have these cybersecurity courses in coordination with the higher education and technical education to all private university and colleges, as well as the state universities and colleges, so that are part of the government. They shall integrate courses of cybersecurity in the program of engineering, computer science, IT, law, criminology, and other interdisciplinary programs. So the Philippine government also have this program, which is the Digital Cities 2025 program. It is a Philippine approach to smart city. So one of the key indicator there is to create a robust and diverse talent. So as part of the criteria in order to create the digital cities. So aside from that, to digitally upskill the Philippines, there's also a partnership between the educational institutions together with the private institutions. We have this technical education and skills development wherein they provide vouchers and scholarships to study vocational training programs. And at the same time, private sectors who are like, for examples, in the industry needs, which they called as enterprise-based programs. So this industry were given by the government to conduct training. They were given budget, they were given vouchers to conduct training, intention for the skills need of the industry. So those are the collaborations, as well as it's also good that there is also another collaborations with the other private sectors that gives certifications when it comes to these emerging technologies, certification programs and certification training as well. So another thing is an infrastructure development. So it's very important, of course, to we all know that limited internet access is a significant barrier to digital upskilling. So the Philippine government is investing in infrastructure improvement. So when it comes to broadband connectivity, community learning hubs. So in the national level, we have this barangay learning hubs and tech for ed centers wherein they train all the out of school youth, senior citizens, and others who would like to learn on digital jobs, digital skills, and a lot of trainings when it comes to information technology and digital literacy.
Awesome. Thank you. That's quite a bit, actually. And I like the fact that you're incentivizing, okay, individuals, because at the end of the day, everybody needs a push. Eklavya, from your desk, from Coursera's desk, how are you guys helping facilitate this goal?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to nation building and also building skills at a large scale, we strongly feel that the academia, industry, and the government needs to come together. Uh, Dr. Joy was mentioning about universities, how universities are looking at it, and that's the starting point because that's where the students start learning skills which will be helpful for them even in their working life. We are already working with many universities, including a lot of universities in the Philippines, to help their students acquire skills through micro-credential and also through different courses. But I feel for the long-term impact, two things need to happen. One is at the policy level and second at the standardization level. For the policy level, it is important that, and it's not just Philippines, but any country which wants to bring in a fast change, a long-lasting change, the policy needs to support that change. So, for example, as a student, if I'm learning something, is it being approved by the government or not approved by the government? That will decide the journey that as a student I will take or as a university I'll decide. So in many countries, the governments have opened up and they've said 30 to 40% of the learning can happen online through external sources because the focus is on building skills through quality content, while they can still learn from their own professors and get the advantage of learning from two different sources. So that's one. So that's the kind of policy change that is needed, which helps all the universities come at the same level. Second is standardization, which means if I'm acquiring a skill, will that be accredited, which can help the individual acquire a job when the individual joins the workforce. Now, for example, if I'm in Philippines, if I acquire a skill, as an individual, I should know whether an ICP or IBPAP or TESDA, all these government and private bodies, do they acknowledge the skill that I have? So that's why it is important. Private partnership and public partnership is important because both the private entities, organizations, and the government entities need to have a standard definition. There are already definitions which are happening. Like, for example, in India, there is NSQF, Philippines also has PQF, PSQF. So how do we define those standards so that when an individual learns, acquires a skill, that skill will help the individual not only in their higher education to earn a degree, but also the same skill should help them in acquiring the job and moving in their careers.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to thank you both. That was very, very insightful. There's a lot going on, and I want to want to congratulate you for the hard work that you guys are doing. Respectfully, individually, as organizations, and as the collaboration. So, with that, I'd like to say goodbye and thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.